Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Onyx. The Onyx Hunt App is your premium GPS hunting app available for your phone. Turns your phone, your tablet, computer, basically into a mobile GPS. And you can use that app absolutely anywhere. So you can use it just like a GPS with or without cell service. So one of the features that I want to talk about within the Hunt app is the map layers feature, the trails and rec section. So there's 5 different layers within that: recreation sites, trails, trail mileages, trail slope, and motor vehicle roads and trails. So the recreation site contains over 300,000 points of interest, including fishing access sites, campgrounds, trailheads, Forest Service cabins, ski areas, breweries, and more. And so you can turn that layer on and off whenever you want, depending on what you're looking for. And then the trails also have over 400,000 miles of trails on land owned by the United States Forest Service, national parks, BLM, local and federal government, and even some private landowners. So a bunch of different data there. The trail mileage shows the differences between points. The trail slope really shows you with just color coding, how steep something is, or maybe something's easier, kind of gauge what you're getting into when you actually go into it. And lastly, the motor vehicle roads and trails. So Onyx has hosted roads and trails data from the United States Forest Service motor vehicle use maps. So it shows what type of vehicles are allowed on each trail. And this layer is available for off-grid use. Can be really helpful. Some people taking e-bikes now. It seems to be a popular thing out west or really anywhere. It gives all that data in there, whether it's side-by-side, ATV, or your regular vehicle. So anyways, the whole trails and rec layer system is super valuable, especially when you're planning your hunt and you can't get there ahead of time to kind of figure that out on your own. So if you want to check out the Onyx Hunt app, head over to onyxmaps.com and use the coupon code EMW. That'll save yourself 20% off of the online app. And the University of Elk Hunting. So Corey Jacobson and Elk 101 have put together a fully comprehensive elk hunting learning course. And from my own experience and from hearing from a bunch of listeners who have already tried out the course, it is extremely value-packed with everything from the beginning planning stages of the hunt all the way to when you're packing your meat out and everything in between. If you're wanting to learn the most elk hunting knowledge in just one place, I couldn't recommend it anymore. Like I said, I was a paying customer of Corey's from year one and still am all the way through. Just it keeps adding more information, and it's just so good to be able to go back and reference it. So if you head over to elk101.com, click on the University of Elk Hunting, and use the coupon code EastMeetsWest, that'll save yourself 20% off of the online course. Tethered. So Tethered has basically changed the game, and this I'm not saying that lightly. They've changed the game when it comes to saddle hunting and lightweight gear for mobile hunting. So the saddle hunting game was new to me last year, and so I tried out the Tethered, the Predator platform, and got to use the saddle out. And well, now this year the new Phantom saddle's out, so I've been playing around with that. But just really changes the game for being lightweight, mobile, and being able to hunt a little bit differently. You really, the shot opportunities are endless from being able to hunt out of a saddle, and I'm really excited to be able to use Tethered system with the platform only weighing just about 3 pounds, a Predator platform, and then the saddle doesn't weigh really any more than your regular safety harness, so you'd be carrying that anyways. Extremely lightweight and easy to use. If you head over to tethernation.com, you can find some more information on Tethered's products as well as just saddle hunting in general. And last but not least, so I shared it a few weeks ago, but I want to give you one last chance to check it out. So from our friends over at Exodus Trail Cameras. So Exodus is running I guess, a campaign right now called #VelvetFest. So it's the official start to deer season and kind of gets everyone rolling for the end of the summer scouting here. So all the way up until August 21st, so it's only a few more days if you're listening to this right when it releases. There's some awesome prizes for anyone that uses #VelvetFest on social media. And then also, if you're in the market for a new trail camera, you can also, every single order gets a random prize card that you'll have to scratch off to reveal the prize. So there's some really cool deals with that. And so coming into week 3 here of Velvet Fest, they've already given away the 2021 October archery hunt with Steve Shirt guide service. If you're a long-time listener to the podcast, Steve was just on here a couple months ago. Week 2 is a shoulder mount from Uran Taxidermy. And week 3, which is still up in the air here, is a September archery hunt for this season with Wicked Obsession in Kentucky and a shoulder mount from National Award-winning studio Full Draw Taxidermy. So any order from the website during this week will be eligible for that week 3 drawing. So there's a lot to this campaign, so make sure you head over to the website, look at the newsletter, and of course, Exodus is backed by the best warranty in the trail camera business, and they're running a 5-year warranty that even comes with theft and damage coverage. So literally half a decade, you get the warranty on the Exodus cameras. I'm running, close to a dozen of them now, and I haven't had any fail besides the one that the bear took down, which that they replaced as a part of the warranty at half off. So anyway, head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com, check that out, and yeah. So this is the last episode that I'll be releasing before I head to Alaska this Thursday. So on August 20th, I'm heading out for a caribou hunt with Michael Palladino, a good buddy of mine, lifelong friend, and then also Justin Mueller is filming the hunt again like he did the elk hunt last year. We're going to put together a full film, some little mini-series stuff, lots of stuff going on here. It's a scheduled 9-day hunt, and I am just ecstatic. Just sent my COVID test in this morning. Had to mess with that, getting it overnighted to get shipped out because I have to have a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours of arrival in Alaska, which is crazy for the turnaround time on that. But hoping that comes back good and we should be, set to go. I can't wait. It's weird going on a hunt in August, but I'm ecstatic about it. And so the next episode, I still will release one next week, but I'll be recording it again probably tomorrow here. So I'll be recording it ahead of time. So hopefully I'm going to do the same thing as I did with my elk hunt and say, well, hopefully by the time you're listening to this that I already have an elk on the ground. I'm hoping that's the same thing with caribou this year. So just can't wait to take off there. Got all my bags packed. Just got to figure out how I'm going to pack my camera gear and my podcast equipment. We're going to record while we're up there, so that'll be fun. And another, update that I have as far as hunting seasons go, my cousin Maven Optics, who was on the elk hunt last year with me, he's out in Utah right now with his brother Tyler, and Mason killed an awesome giant 4x4 muley on the first day of the Utah opener of his 14-day hunt, similar to my story last year with elk. But Mason's been trying for quite a while now to get it done and just put in the work and just he is obsessed with those fuzzy horn mule deer, reminds me of Clint Casper when it comes to that. And he got it done the first day, 40-yard double lung shot. Buck fell down off this cliff and he got down to it, and just an awesome deer. Somehow it didn't get broken up. You can head over to my Instagram page now, the East Meets West page, and check that out. It's such an awesome deer. So congrats to Mason on that. And just lastly, I just want to say that I do have some new apparel over on the website. So I got some new, I don't know, maybe I'll call it the Freedom Series. It's a lot of my new flag type logo, that Jess DiLorenzo designed for me. So I got some cool new shirts over that way. You can check that out. And also, I'm doing a thing now that if you are an active duty, you're active duty in the military, your first responder, or your law enforcement, I'm giving you 10% off. So that's on all orders. So send me an email at beau@eastmeetswest-gift.com, and I'll get you your unique coupon code for you guys and girls out there. That I just really appreciate all of the work that you do, and putting yourself out there to keep us safe and for us to be able to do the things that we do. It's because of you, your hard work, your long hours, and just your pure bravery with things. That is why we're able to do these things. So I want to make sure I give back on that sense, and that's just a small way of me being able to say that. But anyways, head over to eastmeetswesthunt.com/shop, and you can check out all of the apparel items. Most of them won't ship while I'm gone, but some of the new ones you'll see in the description. I'm having them shipped directly from the supplier, so those will go just as normal as if I'm here. So anyways, enough rambling on here for me. I've been talking for about 11 minutes. So let's get into this episode here with Jeremy Banfield from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Been wanting to talk to Jeremy for a while about elk hunting and elk conservation in Pennsylvania, and the two go hand in hand here. So I did not draw my tag, by the way, as we talk about in here. I'm upset with you, Jeremy, for not pulling my name. But anyways, really cool to learn about the history of the Pennsylvania elk, some of the conservation management plans, and describing how to apply for the tags in the future and how the draw system works. So check that out, and hope all of you have a great week. All right, we're live, and tonight I have on the line Jeremy Banfield from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Jeremy, it's good to be able to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I had. It's funny. I reached out to you recently due to an article that I'm writing for the Pennsylvania Wilds, and it was actually just an opportunity, or I guess kind of a kick in my ass to be able to reach out to you, because I had been planning on it for a while to talk about the Pennsylvania elk herd and elk hunting and everything else. But before I get too deep into that, I want to just have you give a little bit of a background on yourself and who you are and kind of why I'm talking to you here.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I'm originally from Western New York, so I'm not a PA native. I know that's a ding for some people, but I did 4 years in the military. That took me from Alaska to Virginia to Michigan, and then I was a Michigan resident when I got out. So I did my undergrad in fisheries and wildlife management at Michigan State University, which I know is also going to be a ding for some people. For all the PSU grads out there, they're going to be like, Michigan State, but yeah. So undergrad for Michigan State, and then after that, I did a master's in ecology at the University of Alberta, actually in Canada, and my research there focused on mountain lion elk interactions, and then I got a job with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, which is just like the Game Commission, only for the state of Montana. Was there for about a year. Really loved Montana. My wife did not. So started looking for other positions, and this came up, and so I've been in Pennsylvania since 2013. This is not an exaggeration. I probably have the best job in the Game Commission. It is not without challenges. It's not to say that I don't have bad days and things, but I really love my job. It is really just kind of everything that I wanted to do as a biologist rolled into one. And I really am sincere when I say that I have the best job in the Game Commission, and I love it. So been here since 2013. Still feels new. I guess that's 7 years now, but doing well, and got another 20 some years to go, probably 23, 25, somewhere in that range. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you do as far as what does an elk biologist do in the game commission?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, you're the elk biologist, right? That's cool. What do you actually do? So that's a good question. If I had to kind of summarize it in like 1-2 sentences, population management, habitat management, and then people management. Those are the three things. Like anything that I do on a given daily basis is either dealing with the elk population, and what I mean by that are the numbers of animals out there. So birth rates, death rates, how many are out there, survival, mortality. All of those things would kind of fall under the umbrella of population dynamics. And so that's one aspect of it. A lot of that is driven and supported by habitat. So, we create habitat that is preferred by elk, that elk need to survive and reproduce. And, so that would be another really key component of it. And then people affect all of that, right? We manage wildlife and elk for people. And so that's arguably the most challenging part, is just trying to incorporate the social aspect and the political aspect with the habitat, with the population. So that's a little bit of a convoluted answer, but anything that I do on a given daily basis can fall loosely into one of those categories.
And I'm sure that probably is a lot different than most other states. Like say, like when you worked in Montana, this is just me assuming, but I feel like you don't have as much human interaction or as much buzz around the elk as you do here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's slightly different structure. So every state's a little bit different, but in Pennsylvania, we have species specialists. So I'm the elk biologist. There's several deer biologists. There's a turkey. There's a bear biologist. In Montana, it was a little more like a specific area. This is my kingdom, and I'm the wildlife biologist for this area, and all the species in that would kind of fall under your purview. But PA is a little bit different. Again, species specialist. So it's more master of one versus the jack of all trades.
Yeah. Okay. I got you there. Yeah. That's incredible. And it's funny because when I talk to people from, out of state and even different parts of Pennsylvania, either they kind of forget that we have elk in Pennsylvania or just don't know of it. It's kind of a crazy thing to think about. And I've grown up in the area my whole life. So I've, been around them and exposed to them, but to a lot of people, that's kind of a foreign thing.
Yep. We did a survey, or we asked a question as part of a survey. I think last year is when it finished up. Maybe it was a year and a half ago, but just statewide sample from the entire state, and it was about 50% of the people in the state knew that we had elk. So, part of my job over the next 10 years will be trying to increase that number and make sure that people are aware we've got a pretty robust elk population.
Yeah, and that's I'm sure that by expanding how many people know, even almost creates challenges for yourself on its own as far as the managing the people side of it as well with that.
It does, and you talked about that earlier. That's one thing that is very different about Eastern versus Western. I mean, just the sheer number of people we have in the state. In a smaller state than a lot of the Western states, and at least Montana, brings its own set of challenges. It does, but it's all good. People are passionate because they care, and that's all that matters. Yeah, that's great.
So I'd like to kind of hear a little bit of a brief history on the Pennsylvania elk herd. When that started and kind of how it's developed over the years, if you want to give kind of a high level version of that.
Yeah. Do you want me to go all the way back into extirpation and reintroduction?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. There are roughly somewhere around 1880s, 1890s, elk were extirpated from Pennsylvania, meaning the last one in Pennsylvania was killed. So, up until that point, there were elk here. pre-colonial through a lot of the colonial settlement. And then, right up until the late 1800s, somewhere in there, the last one was killed. There's a few conflicting accounts. Two different people claim they killed the last one. I don't know how anybody could possibly definitively say that they killed the last elk, but, somewhere around 1890, elk are gone from PA. Stayed gone until 1913. 1913 was the first reintroduction effort. 50 elk were brought in by rail from Yellowstone National Park, and then put out in several different counties. An additional release was done in 1915, and then a few years past, 1924, 1926, a few more were dumped out. So the simple thing to say there is between 1913 and 1926, 177 elk were brought in from various places, mostly Yellowstone, some from South Dakota, some from actually private reserves, private herds that were held in Pennsylvania at that time, and released. That population at that time anyway, and this is, the accounts are not perfect. There's a lot of confusion and it's not clear how they were even assessing the population, but supposedly that population ballooned out to roughly 500-ish. And then it dropped down from there. So there was an early hunting season that ended in 1931, and then there's kind of this dark period from like the late 1930s into the early 70s where the elk were still here, but there wasn't a whole lot of attention being paid to them. Nobody really knows how many there were. There's some estimates as low as 25. There's some estimates around 50. There were not a lot of animals, but they hung on by the skin of their teeth. And then, early 1970s, a renewed interest developed in Pennsylvania elk, started counting again. The early counts back then were around 65 or 70 early on. And through the 1980s, habitat improvements occurred. Those continued into the 90s. There was a lot of challenges with agricultural damage and elk getting into crops and being killed for crop damage and things like that. But long story short, that original population that ballooned out, shrunk down, and now is blown out again to roughly 1,300 animals. Our count this past year, so it occurred in February and March, the latter part of February into the early part of March. We did an aerial survey, and we ended up with about 1,334, I believe, was the actual estimate. And there's error bars on that, that range it anywhere from about 1,200 to 1,600. But confidently, I can say there's roughly 1,300 to 1,400 elk in the state now, and that's a testament to one, their ability to hang on, and two, just the ability of people to make a difference when they do care, right? Like when we started taking a renewed interest in it and improving the habitat, the population responded, and now we've got a solid population that can support an active hunting season.
Yeah. So a couple questions I had just like as you were talking there. First, do you know why the area that they were dropped off was kind of chosen? Is that the main area where they lived prior, or what was the reason for that?
So this is in the management plan if you wanted to look at the maps or anything, because I can't tell you which counties it was off the top of my head. They were released in like 4 or 5 different parts of the state and like separate parts. And a lot of those blinked out because they were too close to agricultural areas, or, just the elk got in trouble and then had to be killed, or farmers killed them or something like that. And the one area that they held on was that north central part of the state that's pretty wild still. And back then, it was extremely wild. Very little development, just logging camps and things like that. So that's probably why that area was chosen, and probably why that area is kind of been the seed of our elk population today, is that was where they were able to survive and hang on, because there wasn't a lot of people there. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for them to get into trouble and conflict with people.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you were talking about, habitat improvements and stuff that have helped the population, what are some of those habitat improvements that you guys have done to improve that?
Yep, that's an excellent question. So elk are primarily grazers, and I got to be cautious when I say that because they will browse. They will use browse as a food source. But if grass or herbaceous habitat, right? So grasses, forbs, legumes, if that stuff is available, that's what they're going to key in on. Northern Pennsylvania, north central Pennsylvania really wants to be mature trees. It just wants to be mature forest. That's kind of where the successional process takes it. And so we, as the management agency and, the creators of habitat, have to do something to set back that successional process. So basically putting in herbaceous areas, grassland, meadows, whatever you want to call them, keeping that grassland component on the landscape so that it's available for elk is really the key there. If you've been to the Benezet area, like the Winslow Hill area, that's a lot of reclaimed strip mine. So reclaimed strip mine makes wonderful elk habitat because it's been put into grass and reclaimed, with an herbaceous foundation, and that's what provides good habitat for elk. So Kentucky would be another example. They've got counties upon counties that have been stripped and reclaimed in Kentucky, and that's where they chose to put their elk population, and it's done very well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense there. And even thinking from myself, hunting out west and stuff, most of the places where you're seeing the elk feeding are on those in the meadows and the grassy hillsides and everything there. And they'll bed in the timber, but most of the feeding seems to be going on, in those open areas.
Yeah, and that's a good analogy. Like that stuff occurs very naturally in the western landscape. They don't have to work as hard to keep it out there. In Pennsylvania, we've got to keep that successional setback going to, or soon it'll turn into a shrub community, and eventually it'll turn into young forest, and eventually it'll turn into mature forest, which again is not great elk habitat. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges and differences between western elk and eastern elk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pennsylvania, no matter where you go, the forests seem to be, thick and until they, grow up into the mature hardwoods. But it's definitely a different landscape than you have in the western states. So I can appreciate the challenges there that you have to deal with. But so. All right, so talked a little bit, about habitat there, and the history of the elk and how the population has come back so strong. What does your management plan, like what kind of goals do you have currently to continue that or sustain it, or what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so we just recently finished up our most recent management plan. It goes from 2020 to 2025, approved in April of this past year. And really what that is just the guiding document on, how are we going to manage elk over the next 5 years? And 5 years from now, we'll refine that and essentially repeat that document with new information, hopefully from different research projects. But in a nutshell, that's going to govern how our hunt is going to be run over the next 5 years, what kind of goals we have for habitat management, what kind of goals we have for research, for educating the public and trying to increase, awareness and interest in elk. All of that stuff is rolled into that single plan, and that's a public document. It's out there for everybody to read, and there was a public involvement process when we wrote it as well. So it's not like we just dictate this stuff and don't involve the public in that. But essentially, for lack of a better term, that management plan is the guiding document that we use to manage elk in Pennsylvania for the next 5 years.
Okay. And
is that what you're asking for, or do you want to go into more of that?
I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into it, just more or less, surrounding the population and kind of the zones that they live in, because it seems like they're kind of, in a certain area, I guess I'm loading up the questions here, but first off, let's talk about what stops them from expanding, or maybe there isn't anything that stops them from expanding their zone, but can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So we do have an elk management area. And the boundaries of that are outlined in the management plan. I can quick rattle them off. But on the very western side, it'd be US 219, carry that all the way up to US 6 across the top. So that's the northern boundary, US 6. Eastern boundary is going to be PA 287, and then it picks up a little bit of 220, and then Interstate 80 at the bottom. If you drew that box, and for hunters, that's all of 2H and most of 2G. If you drew that kind of box, that's our elk management area. That's where we'd like to see elk stay within the state of Pennsylvania. It's only about 2/3 occupied at the moment, so there is room to grow to the north and east. And the reason that area was chosen as our elk management area is it's got a very low percentage of agriculture. Elk can be really hard on agriculture. I always tell people it's one thing to have 5 little whitetails in your cornfield. It is something completely different to have 5 elk in your cornfield. So trying to keep them out of agricultural areas and basically trying to keep them on public land. So that area is greater than 70% public land. And that's where we're trying to keep the elk so they stay out of trouble, and then they're available for hunting opportunities as well. What keeps them there is a different question. It's probably a combination of habitat improvements. So, using preferred habitat and creating that preferred habitat to vacuum them into those areas and keep them there. And then the other thing is, generally speaking, and you can include this or not, but generally speaking, when elk leave the elk management area, they get into trouble with farmers, and then they get killed for crop damage. So it's legal to kill elk for crop damage, and that law is pretty liberal. It's up to the farmer what they consider damage. Or 2, they end up getting smoked on the road. So along with that public land component, there's how do I say this? Road density is correlated with public land, and it's much lower in areas that have a lot of public land versus, the privately owned areas have a much higher road density. So it's just probability of being killed on the road is a lot higher when you leave that area.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and especially with the farm country, and I've spent a decent amount of time personally through the elk management area, and you have this information readily available, like you said, to the public online. You can see these zones that Jeremy's talking about, but I know, like, when I've hunted more of the eastern side and spent time in there, I hadn't seen as many elk, but one thing I noticed was that area didn't have as many of the food plots or the fields and the habitat improvements there to keep them more. It's seemed to be more of just, unbroken timber rather than the areas where they're concentrated at that have a little bit more of that diversity.
Yeah. And that's coming slowly, right? Like, and don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I don't want to go blowing in there and knocking down all the mature timber and taking out Pennsylvania's forest to put in grass. But what I would say is that slowly over time, hopefully we can intersperse some of that mature timber with more of those herbaceous openings, and try and move those animals naturally into that northeastern section. So Susquehannock State Forest, a little more Sproul State Forest, that area there, trying to move elk into there naturally, not picking them up and moving them, but just allowing them to find their way out there on their own, but using habitat to move them.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. As far as the population goes, are you working to increase that as they expand their areas, or is it pretty healthy where it's at, or what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, that's always a good question. I'm going to give you the PC answer. So everybody's, I shouldn't say everybody. One of the common questions is, what's the target? Do we have some target population out there? And my masterfully crafted government employee answer is within the available habitat and within the social acceptance is where we would like to keep that population. So there's no magic number. I will say that not everybody, got to be careful about that. Right now, Pennsylvania residents are into elk, man. I mean, elk is cool. People are interested, and generally speaking, the Commonwealth wants more elk. So the social acceptance is there, especially if we can keep them on public ground and out of some of the conflict areas. The habitat is coming. So yes, over the next, 10 to 20 years, I would love to see our population potentially double. If we could go from 1,400 elk to 28 or 3,000 elk, and we were taking, 300 to 350 of them a year through our hunt, that would be, a great accomplishment, and I'd be very proud of that as a career, accomplishment.
Yeah, no, I'm following you there, and I'll tell you one thing. Just it's really cool to be able to, when I'm hunting whitetails and stuff in areas that have elk, especially in the beginning of the archery season in October, when they're still kind of at the tail end of the rut there and bugling and doing everything else. It's a really incredible experience. And when I'm running trail cameras and stuff, then all of a sudden I have a big bull on my camera that I had set out for whitetails. But it's just a really neat thing to be able to see that.
Where are you hunting most? I mean, that's a trick question, I guess. No, yeah, but
we'll talk about that offline.
Like what elk zone? Do you know the elk zones? What elk zone are you hunting deer in?
I don't even know if I can say that.
All right, we'll let that go.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after we get done recording. But
all right, that's good.
I to be honest, I split up through a lot of the elk zones, and I'd hunt all over. But in the areas that I hunt, I would say closer to like the concentration of them. I'm not even sure what zones those are, but those ones I'm running into elk, quite a bit more. But even on the outskirts of, like, I'm not hunting, in Benazet or anything, but on the outskirts, I'm still running into them more and more. And it's really cool to be able to see that. Like I said, it's just, I can remember a day last October. It was early season, and there was some of the food plots down in the lower country below me, and I was kind of up on this ridge, and all I could hear was just the valley echoing with bugles and everything else. And actually it was funny. I could see, it was quite a ways off this big oak ridge. I could see this one plot there, and there was a couple bulls out there bugling, and on the opposite side there were a few coyotes, and they started howling at the same time. It was incredible to see them both in the same field there, and it was just a really cool experience.
That is awesome. That probably sends chills down your spine type of thing. That's a really neat experience for sure. Yeah. So it's cool. Again, most people think it's cool. Obviously, not everybody does, and that's understandable. Elk can get into trouble and cause damage, and that's part of it as well. Yeah,
I can understand maybe some of the people that are living right in the middle of it might think a little bit differently than I do about it, but when they have their plants.
Yeah, there's a disparity between those that live with the elk and those that don't, and that's understandable.
Yep. Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about hunting elk in Pennsylvania and some of the opportunities there, because just from my outside perspective and viewing here, I mean, the opportunities have grown, especially in the last year, to be able to hunt elk and adding seasons. And I'd like for you to give kind of a background on that one, kind of how it got to that point, or why it changed as part of your management plan, and what that looks like for hunters that want to hunt elk in PA.
Yeah, absolutely. So quick introduction there, or quick history. 2001 was when elk hunting was brought back to Pennsylvania. I mentioned earlier that there was a season early on in the early part of the century, 1920s, 1930s, and there wasn't any hunting up until between then and 2001. So 2001, brought back the hunting season. We've had a hunting season every year since then. It's traditionally been the first full week of November, a 6-day season, so a week-long season, and everything's been packed into there. 2019, so last year, we added in a 2-week archery season during the rut, so during the last 2 weeks of September, and then as well as a late season that occurs the first part of January. And the motivation behind that was trying to break up, or trying to spread some of the pressures, trying to spread some of the opportunity across time and across the seasons to just give people a better experience, right? We were increasing the number of tags, and it got to the point where you couldn't pack any more people into a certain zone during that 6-day season. Elk are not scattered, they're not ubiquitously spread across the landscape the way that whitetails are. So they're a herding species. You have to find the elk and hunt them where they are. And we didn't want people, crowding up and everybody shooting at the same group of elk or something like that. So really the goal there was just to spread that opportunity and spread that pressure out across multiple seasons, and adding the archery season. I mean, that archery season is so awesome, if you ask me. I mean, during the rut, last 2 weeks of September, it does not get a whole lot more exciting than that. That is super cool. So, that one was brought in to provide that opportunity, and then adding in the late season as well. The late season is currently cow only, but hunting elk in the snow or being able to track elk through snow. Hopefully, there's snow in January. Can't always predict that, but at least the opportunity is there, and that's a cool experience as well. So overall, each one of those 3 seasons has its own set of, they're all on a lottery, right? So each one of those seasons has its own set of applications, its own drawing, and then its own bonus point structure.
Yeah.
Pause there. Do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, I would, because it's different than any other state, at least that I've applied for. I mean, I apply for states all over across the West and build points and stuff, and I love that in Pennsylvania, which you'll explain here, but that you can essentially accumulate bonus points per season rather than just in general, and I think that's a really unique way of it, and I think it's awesome and just really expands the opportunities. Yep.
Okay, so I'll kind of, hopefully I'll just spring off here and you can piece this together later on, but the best thing I can say right there is each season, each one of those seasons, early archery, general, and then late, are their own unique structure. So they don't intermix. If you apply for the archery season, you are not put in for the general season. You're not put in for the late season. You can apply for all 3 seasons. You have to pay the application fee every time. So it's $11.90 to apply for 1 season. You could apply for 2 seasons. You could apply for all 3 seasons. It'd be $35.70. You can only be drawn for 1. And they're drawn in the order that they occur. So the archery season gets drawn first, the general season gets drawn next, the late season gets drawn last. If you put in for all 3 seasons, you're pulled for the archery season, boop, you're out for the general or the late season. Along with that, though, you gain a bonus. There's a bonus point structure for each season. And before I dive into that, let me just say this real quick. There is this confusion about preference point system versus bonus point system. I still hear people saying preference points in Pennsylvania. That's a little bit of a misnomer. We don't. There is a difference, right? So a preference point system, a true preference point system, is like where you would gain a certain number of points, and then you're pretty much guaranteed a tag, right? So the tags are only given to that upper cohort to have, the maximum number of points or some set number of points. We don't have that. We have a true bonus point system, and how that works is the bonus points act as a multiplier. So every bonus point that you have throws your name in the hat an additional time for the number of times that you have. As many bonus points as you have, that's the number of times that your name goes into the hat. And that effectively bumps the probability that you're going to draw. So each one of those seasons has its own bonus point structure. And those things don't intermix either, right? So if you put in for the archery season, you gain points for the archery season. Those points only apply for the archery season in the future. Same thing for general, same thing for late. And the benefit of that then is that if you draw, your points are zeroed out for the season that you drew in, but your points for the remaining seasons stay. And this can get confusing, and I don't want to mess people up too much here, but quick example, the maximum number of bonus points that you could have for that general season would be 17 this year. In 2020, if you put in every single year, you could have 17 bonus points plus your current application. Your name would go in the hat 18 times. Because we started the archery season and the late seasons last year, the maximum number of bonus points you could have for those seasons is 1. So it'd be bonus point for last year plus this current year's application. Your name would go in the hat 2 times. And if you drew for the general season, your points are going to zero out, right? You got a tag. Your points will zero out. If you pull a cow tag, you can start gaining points again the following year. If you pull a bull tag, you got to wait 5 years. But your points for the archery season and the late season are unaffected, right? So each one is its own silo, its own structure, its own thing, and they don't intermix. You can apply for all 3, but you can only be pulled for 1.
Yeah,
that was a little bit of it's a whirlwind there. Do you want me to try that one more time or no?
No, that's perfect. That's that you explained it really well, because that's something, I mean, even myself, I've struggled with, figuring out what the Western states with bonus points and preference points, and some do both. And there's all these different, avenues there. But in my opinion, I like the bonus point structure better than a preference point, because it gives everybody an opportunity at it versus just the people that have been putting in forever. Like, I know, like, say in Colorado, in my lifetime, there's a good chance I'll never draw those top units because I'm so far behind in that preference point structure. Just point creep keeps coming in, and it takes longer and longer to be able to draw. And, if you look at the numbers, I really don't think there's an opportunity there, where with this structure, I mean, you have an opportunity with no points, but you just have a little bit better one if you've been putting in for, X amount of years. Because I think for me personally, I have 8 points in the general season, and then just 1 in the archery in the late season because of that that just came into play last year. So that I think you explained that really well, and I think it can be a little bit confusing to some. I wrote an article last year on my website about it. I actually kind of broke it down from Game Commission website and everything, and kind of put it in my own terms on there, as far as like when you're looking at applying for elk and what that all means. And I think that, like I said, I really like that structure for it, and I think you did a good job explaining it.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, every year. Well, I shouldn't say every year. Yeah, it seems like every year, at least one person is like, yeah, this is the first year I put in and I pulled the tag, and I'm just like, well, man, the odds were against you, but you got really lucky there. So yeah, obviously the odds are better if you have a greater number of points. But somebody that puts in for the first time still's in the hat the same way. It's just they're not in the hat as many times as somebody with a greater number of points is. But there was one more thing I was going to say there. Oh, so just so I've said it, there's only 2 things that affect your odds. First of all, we get lots of criticism over the odds. You got better odds of being struck by lightning. You got better odds of winning the lottery, stuff like that. The odds are not as bad as a lot of people think. So I've got the 2019 odds calculated out. I think that's on our website. I don't know it off the top of my head without looking, but it's the worst you could have done would have been a first-time applicant choosing bull only. I think it was like 1 in 8,000. And then the best you could have done would have been somebody that has the maximum number of bonus points, and they went either sex, and I think it was 1 in 80. But the 2 things that affect your odds are, 1, the bonus points, like we're already talking about. More bonus points, better odds. And the other thing is whether you go bull only, cow only, either sex. So obviously bull only has the worst odds. You're only putting yourself in the hat for, the limited number of bull tags that there are. Cow only is in the middle. You're only putting yourself in the hat for the number of cow tags that are out there. Either sex is the best because you're putting yourself, in the drawing for every single tag that is pulled out. So those combined with your points are what affect your odds overall. So a lot of people do only want a bull. That's fine. If you only want a bull, go bull only. If you just want to kill an elk, pick either sex. It's got the best odds. And the other thing is the hunt zone preference. So there's 14 hunt zones. Hunt zone 1 is open to anybody with a valid tag. Hunt zone 7 is open to nobody because it has an allocation of 0 bulls and 0 cows. It's the area around the visitor center and around that Winslow Hill area, and we're just we don't want to put tags in there because it'll just cause problems. So 2 through 6, 8 through 14, any of those zones could be chosen as a preference, but it's a preference. It has no effect on your odds of being drawn whatsoever. All it does is if that zone is available when you're drawn, you get it. If that zone is not available when you're drawn, you randomly get bumped to the next open zone. So once you're drawn, and the hunt zone preference it's just a preference. It's just like, this is what I would prefer, but it doesn't affect your odds of being drawn. So if you, some people will pick no preference because they think it gives them better odds. It actually doesn't. It does nothing. It actually behooves you to pick something unless you truly do not care. So if you've got a camp up there, you've got a buddy that has a camp, a certain zone better than another zone, pick it. It doesn't hurt anything. Unless you truly, truly do not care which zone you get, go no preference.
I think that's a really good thing that you noted there. Cause I remember when I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, well, this zone I'd like to hunt, but they only have a couple, bull tags available, where this one has a few more, and what are my odds there? But once I, read into it a little more and saw that, you just get picked for the next zone, then it doesn't really matter. It's just once your name gets drawn, then the next, if your preference is open, you'd get it, correct? And then if it doesn't, you get the next available one.
That's absolutely right. So if you're the first person drawn out of the hat, you're going to get whatever zone you selected for your preferred zone. We got 164 tags this year. If you're number 163, chances are you might not get your preferred zone, but you're still going to get a tag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously all the zones that are available that have tag allocations have elk, or there wouldn't be allocations for the tags there, correct?
Correct, yep. And we can talk about that real quick. So the allocation, the annual tag allocation, is based on two things. The first and primary one is population, and it is calculated on a zone-by-zone basis. So, you'll notice zones with a greater number of elk have a proportionally higher number of tags. And then the second component of that is human elk conflicts. So areas that, elk are getting beyond what I would call the social carrying capacity or the social acceptance, we'll try and reduce those populations. Areas with consistent agricultural damage, we're trying to keep that population at a point where it's sustainable and balanced with the farmers in the area and stuff like that. So trying to reduce populations in areas of high human elk conflict and allow them to grow a little bit more in areas where they don't get into trouble.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, but at least from what I see is, one, Pennsylvania has arguably some of the biggest antlered bulls in the country, from that standpoint, and just about all of the zones have potential for, if you're looking at it from a trophy standpoint, that they all have the capability of producing that.
Agreed. We have big bulls because our age class is high. I said earlier, we've got a population of roughly 13 to 1400. We killed like 26 last year. This year, I think it's 36. So that's not a lot. We have a very limited bull harvest, and the result of that, or the consequence of that, is that our age class can get older. The average age of a bull killed in Pennsylvania is 6. Those big, 400 class bulls are usually 8, 9, 10 years old, sometimes 11. So point being, they can live long enough to make it to the age where antler structure is peaked, and that's ultimately what gives us that pretty consistent, very, very mature bull class out there. And then along with that, they're fairly evenly distributed across the elk population. So in every single zone, there's the potential to kill a 400 class bull, which is freaking crazy. For people that aren't into score or don't know what I'm talking about, like if you've ever heard of a 200-inch whitetail, that's insane. And the counterpart to that in elk would be a 400-inch bull. So 380 is record. Like most people would look at a 350 or even a 320 sometimes and be like, "Oh, I'm killing that thing. It's done." But 380 is record book, and then anything over 400 is sick.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That's incredible. One question that I had back when you're talking about the applications, for the application fee, is that the same for resident and non-resident?
Yes. So the application fee is the same for non-residents or residents. It's $11.90. You don't have to have a hunting license or anything like that. If you're pulled, if you're drawn, then you've got to buy the elk license. It's $25 for residents. It's $250 for non-residents. They would also have to buy the general hunting license as well. So it's still relatively inexpensive. Again, you can include this or not include it. I'll leave it up to you. But just so I've said it, we get criticized a little bit over the non-resident thing. There's a lot of people that are pretty possessive over Pennsylvania's elk, and they think it should be resident only. One of the foundational principles behind wildlife management is that wildlife are held in public trust. They belong to everybody, and that includes residents and non-residents. And it's that foundation itself that allows Pennsylvania hunters to go to other states and hunt elk. You're going to Alaska soon. You're a non-resident in Alaska. So it's the same idea that non-residents have equal probability of drawing a tag. All of that said, it ends up being like 4 to 5% on an annual basis of the non-residents that get tags. So, people will point out that other states have 10% caps. I mean, we could make a 10% cap, but it wouldn't do anything because we've never reached 10% of our tags going to non-residents. So on average, it's like 5% that go to non-residents. So It's certainly not a strong piece of it, but it is. It's still part of the principles of wildlife management that wildlife belong to everybody. And so, at the moment, it's that idea that allows Pennsylvania hunters to go to other states, and the same idea that allows them to come to our state and hunt our elk.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like I said, I've got to hunt elk in a few different states now and everything, and I would be pretty upset if I couldn't do that. So as much as, I want to increase my own odds, that's just a selfish way of looking at it. In my opinion, it needs to be, all the way across the board. And for non-residents, I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal for $250 to get the elk license if they do draw, which is, essentially a third, if not a quarter of, what non-resident prices are for, other, Western states.
Yep. It's definitely cheap. And again, they're the minority in the pool. So are they affecting your odds? Yeah, I guess. But it's pretty negligible in the actual amount that they're affecting your odds, just because there's not a lot of them in the drawing. So, take that or leave it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad you touched on that a little bit there, and it gives opportunities to everyone, which I believe it should, across the board, and that opens up opportunities for, Pennsylvania residents to hunt out of state and vice versa. So I think that's good. Is there anything else as far as from the elk hunting side of things that you think we should cover or talk about?
No, I mean, we talked about the application, some of the common questions, confusions. No, I mean, unfortunately, our application period is closed for this year. So hopefully, you already got into it. Hopefully everybody already got into it. Drawing is coming up on the 15th. That is normally held at the Elk Expo. We don't have an Elk Expo this year. Unfortunately, it was canceled, like everything else. But we're still going to do the drawing on the 15th. So, really hope that I pull somebody's name that's listening right here.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And I'm really hoping that's my name, but
yeah,
of course.
I should have said that. Yeah, I hope it is as well. That would be awesome. And what's funny is every year, okay, so there's 40,000 to 50,000 people that put in for the application every year. And when I first started this in 2013, 7 years ago, if you had asked me how many people are going to be at the drawing that win, I would have said 0, man. Like, what are the odds of that? Like, who of those 40,000, 50,000 people, what are the odds that, any of them are going to be at the drawing? I'm telling you, every single year, at least one person is there that gets drawn, and they always go crazy, and it's super exciting. I think one year we had 3 people that were in the audience when we did the drawing. And one year it was an Amish guy, and his last name was Yoder. And like when it popped up on the screen, he started going nuts. And I was like, "Are you really sure that's you? That's like every Amish person out there has the last name of Yoder. So like, how do you know that's you?"
That is funny. And if I know it's not going on this year, but if anyone ever gets a chance to go to that Elk Expo, I've gone just about every year for the last 5 years, and it's incredible. And to hear the names being drawn there live, I mean, I know again with the circumstances this year that's not possible, but it is really cool, and the energy there is unmatched.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. It's I think I often introduce the drawing, and I usually start off by saying that today is my favorite day of the year, and that's sincere. Like it's one of my favorite days of the year that we do that, and it's very exciting for all those people that basically get a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, and so this episode is going to release just a couple days after that. So there's a chance that I'm announcing at the beginning that I drew the tag. So that's what I'm banking on here, or maybe someone listening did, and that's pretty cool. Do you apply yourself, Jeremy?
Yeah. Okay. There is no legal reason that I can't, as in there's no regulation that says, the elk biologist cannot apply. I don't put in for the true season. Like, I don't put in for any of the seasons themselves, only because I am terrified. Like, if I did get drawn, I can hear the conspiracy theories right now. I have to be at the check station, during the season, so it would cause problems there. Long story short, there's a point only option. I should have mentioned earlier, there is a point only option. So if you knew for some reason you couldn't hunt this year, we'll gladly take your $11.90 and just give you the points. So that's what I do. I put in for the points, and I'm building my points. And then by the time I retire, the game commission can't tell me what to do anymore. And I will have accrued a large number of points, and I will have intimate knowledge of the elk range by that time. And I will cash those in and try and pull a tag at that point. So yeah, I put in kind of, but not really, yeah. I get the points.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be a tough thing for you, because it's like, I won, I got the tag, and then it's like, oh no, I got to deal with all this additional, like you said, conspiracy theories and everything else that comes along with it.
Yeah, and this year I'm gonna be reading the names, and I mean, you can only imagine if like I read my own name, it just would not go over well.
Yep. Just drop the mic and walk away.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But I hope I pull your name. That'll be awesome. That'd be super exciting.
Cool. And then there'll be conspiracy theories there, but I don't care. So
that's true. That's true. Yeah. They'll blow over.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I do want to switch gears again here a little bit and talk about the new campaign, if you call it, Elk SMART. I want to hear about that and kind of the reasons behind it and what it's all about.
Yeah, and you could call it a campaign. You could call it an initiative. I guess we call it a campaign, but Elk SMART is, in one sentence, the idea that, we want to keep Pennsylvania's elk wild. So we want people to recognize that they have a shared responsibility in keeping Pennsylvania's elk wild and doing what they can to do that. And along with, that umbrella of Elk SMART, we've come up with 4 points. See what I did there?
Yeah.
And that was a bad one. But
I laughed.
The 4 points of Elk SMART are, the first is just don't give them space, right? Like, you don't need to be 20 feet from the animal to have a positive experience with it. Elk are wild. They can be unpredictable. Nobody's been attacked yet. In national parks, everywhere else in the country, people have been attacked by elk, and I really hope it never comes to that in Pennsylvania. But just give elk as much space as possible. So the second one is don't feed elk, right? Like, that goes along with giving them space, right? We don't want to pull elk unnaturally close to people, and when you feed animals, it positively reinforces them. So it is illegal as well, I should say that. But give them space, don't feed them, don't name them. This one can be tough for people, and I know we want to be attached to the animals. We want to personify them. We're people, right? So like we have a natural instinct to personify wild animals as well. But when you do that, it steals something from them, right? So it takes away from their wild nature and their essence by putting human characteristics on them. And we love elk, and we think they're awesome because they're wild, right? And because they're independent from us. They're not tied to us. And so when you name animals, you steal some of that, and you degrade that wild nature. And then the last part is doing your part, right? So we, the Game Commission, and all of our partnering organizations that are part of Elk SMART, we can't be everywhere at once. We can't be the elk police or anything like that. So we're just asking everybody to share in that responsibility. If you see somebody doing things that you don't think they should be doing, or feeding or naming or approaching elk too close, say something, right? Like, you have a responsibility to keep PA elk wild. So this has it's going to depend on everybody working together and everybody kind of policing everybody else to make this be successful. So do your part. You see something, say something, and please help us, accomplish this mission together. If I can expand on that a little bit, it's just, I already talked about kind of the independence, and we want to maintain that independence, but we don't want, long term, we don't want elk to be portrayed as zoo animals. We want future generations, my kids, your kids, their kids, to have a wild elk population. And so that depends on our actions right now, right? Like, everything that we're doing now is going to have an impact into the future. And that's really the goal of Elk SMART in a nutshell. It's just trying to make sure that everybody has a shared responsibility. Keep them distance, don't feed, don't name, and do your part. Those are the four pieces of it. And the goal is just to keep our elk as wild as we can.
Yeah, I think that's a great, initiative there, or campaign, or whatever you want to call it, that, with, just, yeah, as you see, you don't want it to turn into something like you see in Yellowstone and having, like you said, interactions that hurt the wildlife, hurt people, everything else. I can understand that and respect it.
Yeah, and that's a great point as well. And I didn't mention that, but this is really, it's two things. It's trying to keep people safe, but also trying to keep the elk safe. And I said earlier, nobody's ever been attacked. They haven't yet, but the unfortunate part here is that if somebody ever does get attacked, we as the Game Commission, we're going to have a responsibility then to euthanize that animal, because we're not going to be able to risk it happening again, right? Once it happens once, the chances of it happening again have now increased, and we can't take that risk. So, when you have those type of interactions, when you have that type of conflict, the wildlife loses every time, right? We can't euthanize the person. So we're going to have to go in and remove the elk in that case. So, Elk SMART is designed to keep people safe, but also keep elk safe long term. And I hope we never have to do that. I hope we never see an attack. There's been some close calls. There's been some vehicles that have been pretty messed up and smashed in pretty hard. And I just hope that never translates into somebody getting injured or hurt.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of capping that one. 'Cause like you said, it's pretty easy to be around them in certain areas within the elk zones and the elk country there, that, do your part and be smart with it. I guess is a simple way of putting it.
Yes, absolutely. So, but yeah, we're going to be kicking that off here soon. We'll have T-shirts, we'll have yard signs. Everything's got the Elk SMART logo on it, and our goal is to just get the word out there as much as possible, and again, hopefully get a grassroots embracement of this program, and this podcast is part of it. Yeah,
well, I appreciate you talking to me about that and everything else with elk in Pennsylvania, and I hope that this reaches a bunch of people that will help kind of live and breathe the Elk SMART mentality with it, and do their part as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Cool. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me and to be able to provide this information. I think there was so much knowledge in this, and I know me personally, I got more out of it than I was even hoping to. So that's great.
Hey, thank you. Anything that brings awareness to Pennsylvania's elk population and gets people thinking about it, gets people talking about it, is all great stuff. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Jeremy, where can people find some more information on the Pennsylvania elk herd, on Pennsylvania elk hunting, and Elk SMART, and everything we talked about? Where do you have some resources you kind of list off there for people to go look this stuff up?
Yeah. This is a given. Our website is going to have all of that information on it. So that's the Pennsylvania Game Commission's website. There's an elk specific page in there, and there's components of pretty much everything that we've talked about. So, like all of the information about the hunting, the application, a link to our management plan is on there, and then there will be information related to Elk SMART as well. So that'd probably be the primary place to start. And then another thing that I would point out is the Game Commission's YouTube page. There's different videos, different educational tools or educational videos that are listed on our YouTube page, and that'd be a second one that I'd probably point to, something I'd point everybody to. Man, I'm tripping over my words. Sorry.
No, that's great. I definitely urge everyone to check out those things for more detail and everything that we talked about here. It's all available to the public, so it's I definitely appreciate that that's out there. So,
hey, real quick, one thing I forgot, and hopefully you can splice this in somewhere, but Elk SMART is not just a game commission thing. It is a partnership between several different organizations. So there's a lot of different entities and a lot of different pieces to elk tourism and elk hunting and everything elk related in Pennsylvania. So Elk SMART is a partnership between the Keystone Elk Country Alliance. They're the organization that runs the visitor center, and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is a part of it. Department of Conservation and Natural Resources is a big part of it. The Pennsylvania Wilds is a part of it, and then the Pennsylvania Great Outdoors Visitor Bureau is also a part of it. So, all of those entities combined, we're a big team on this whole initiative and pushing it together, and everybody's on the same page with that. So, just a shout out to all those different partners, and their participation and support is key to making this a success.
Yeah, that's a great ad there, and I will add a plug here too. I'll be writing an article for the Pennsylvania Wilds, which is one of the Elk SMART partners, about this program, and kind of my conversation here with Jeremy. So you'll be able to find some more information there as well. So cool. Well, Jeremy, again, thank you for coming on and talking to me here, and I hope that you pull my name in the drawing.
Yeah, I hope so too. That would be so cool, man. I would literally laugh out loud if that happened, but I hope it happens as well.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.